Have you ever just stopped and wondered if we're making more of the very stuff that powers, well, pretty much everything? Today, we're digging into a question that sounds simple on the surface, but has some huge implications. Is Earth still creating new oil? Let's get into it.
Right. We all use the term fossil fuel. It immediately brings to mind dinosaurs, ancient swamps, a world that's long gone. We think of it as this finite resource, a relic from the past. But is that the whole picture? Or is Earth's geological machinery still chugging along, making more oil as we speak?
All right, so to really get to the bottom of this, let's start with the story we all kind of know, the one we probably learned back in school.
Okay, so think of oil like a massive geological bank account. For millions and millions of years, nature was making these huge deposits. Then, for the last couple hundred years, we've been making some seriously massive withdrawals. The conventional wisdom is that once that account is empty, it's empty for good. But to know if that's really true, we first got to understand how the account got filled up in the first place.
It's almost like a recipe, but one that takes an unbelievably long time to cook. So let's break down the ingredients and the step-by-step process for making crude oil.
So first things first, let's just clear up a common myth. Oil does not come from dinosaurs. Nope, it's actually made from trillions upon trillions of tiny organisms. Think ancient plankton and algae. When they die, they sink to the bottom of old oceans and lakes, and they get buried under layers and layers of sediment. Over millions of years, the insane pressure and heat transforms all that organic gunk into a waxy substance called kerogen. And then, with even more time and just the right temperature, that kerogen cooks into the crude oil we use today.
But here's the catch, and it's a big one. It's not just about time and pressure. There's this sweet spot, a sort of Goldilocks zone that geologists call the oil window. If the organic matter gets buried too shallow, it's too cold, and nothing really happens. If it gets buried too deep, it gets way too hot and just turns into natural gas. Only inside this pretty narrow temperature range can you actually get crude oil.
So we've got the recipe, we have the ingredients, and we know the exact cooking conditions, which of course brings us right back to our original question. Is this incredibly slow geological factory still open for business?
And the answer is yes. Yeah, technically the process is still happening. Right now, in oceans and lakes all over the world, the very first steps of oil formation are taking place. But, and this is the most crucial part of this whole explainer, this factory operates on a geological timescale, not a human one.
The difference in these timescales is just staggering. I mean, it's hard to even wrap your head around. Nature takes anywhere from 10 to 100 million years to create a decent oil deposit. We've built an entire global civilization that's burning through all of it in just a few centuries. The scales aren't even in the same universe.
Look at it this way. Most of the oil we use today was formed way back during the age of dinosaurs. Any oil that's starting its journey right now, well, it won't be ready for millions of years. In our entire industrial civilization, the whole history of us using oil, it's just that tiny, tiny sliver at the very end of this incredibly long geological story. So, okay, a tiny, minuscule amount of new oil is in the works. But does that actually matter? Could it ever make a real difference to our energy supply?
Well, the reality is not really. Not even close. Sure, there are some fringe theories about non-biological oil, but the vast majority of geologists agree the amount is trivial. And you might hear stories about old oil wells refilling themselves. That's usually just oil from nearby slowly migrating over. It's not new oil being created. On top of all that, the Earth's climate today just isn't as good for making oil as it was in the past.
This analogy just sums it up perfectly. We are scooping water out of a bucket by the gallon, while nature is adding it back one single drop at a time. No matter how you slice it, that bucket is getting empty, and it's getting empty fast.
Now that scooping is happening at a mind-boggling rate. As a planet, we burn through over 90 million barrels of oil every single day. Any new oil being formed is, well, it's less than a rounding error compared to that number. It's a statistical impossibility.
So all this brings us to a really critical turning point in the conversation. If the amount of new oil being created is basically zero for all practical purposes, then maybe we've been focused on the completely wrong question.
The real issue isn't when we'll run out of oil. The real issue is, what are the consequences of burning through the massive amounts we've already found?
Using this ancient fuel has a profound, and I mean profound, impact on our planet. It is the primary driver of climate change. It acidifies our oceans. It leads to land degradation and, of course, devastating oil spills. These aren't some far-off future problems. They are happening right here, right now.
And that, right there, is why the shift to renewable energy is so incredibly important. It's not happening because we're about to run out of oil. We actually have a lot left. It's happening because we're running out of time to deal with the consequences of burning it. Our reliance on it just isn't compatible with a stable planet.
This quote puts it perfectly. We have been treating a one-time geological inheritance like it's a daily paycheck. It's an energy bank account that took eons to fill, and we are on track to spend it all in what amounts to a historical blink of an eye. So the path forward isn't really about digging deeper and deeper into the past for energy. It's about looking around us and harnessing the incredible power of the present. The sun that shines every day, the wind that blows, and, of course, our own human ingenuity.
So let's go back to our first question. Is new oil being created today? Yes. But honestly, that's just a bit of geological trivia. It's not a solution to anything. The real question, the one we all have to face, is this. As this ancient inheritance we've been living on dwindles, and as the consequences of using it keep piling up, how are we going to choose to power our future? The answer to that question, well, that will define the world we leave behind.